I'll never forget the day I walked into Dr. Stevens' office. I was just looking for a checkup, but what I found turned my life upside down. It started innocently. Dr. Stevens was friendly, and he seemed genuinely interested in my life. A simple, "How have you been feeling?" turned into a conversation about hobbies, places we both loved, and dreams for the future. His genuine interest and easy charm caught me off guard. I had never felt so seen by someone, let alone my doctor. At first, I thought nothing of it. Maybe he was just a really good doctor, someone who cared. But as time went on, things became more personal. I'd catch him looking at me a little too long, his eyes lingering on mine with an intensity that made my heart race. And, although I felt flattered, I also started to feel a bit uneasy. My gut told me this wasn't typical doctor-patient behavior, but I brushed it off. I mean, who wouldn't feel a spark with a man who looked at you like that? Then came the text message. It was after a routine appointment, and as I was leaving the office, my phone buzzed. "I just wanted to make sure you're okay," it read, signed with his initials. That alone wouldn't have been too unusual. Plenty of doctors check on their patients. But when he started texting me after hours, I realized we were moving into unfamiliar territory. The messages started to become more personal. Dr. Stevens would ask about my day, what I was doing that evening, even what I liked to do for fun. Slowly, those texts turned flirtatious. "You must have a smile that can light up a room," he'd write. Or, "I bet your partner's a lucky person to be with someone as stunning as you." And that's when things got complicated. I was single, and, honestly, the attention was thrilling. Here was a man who saw me not just as a patient but as a person, someone he genuinely seemed to want to know. The next appointment came, and this time, things were different. He kept his hands on my shoulder a little longer than needed. When he checked my pulse, his touch felt softer, lingering in a way that felt charged with an unspoken energy. Our eyes met, and for a moment, it felt like the air between us was electrified. I didn't know what to do. My heart raced, and a small part of me wanted to see where this would go. One evening, after a particularly intense exchange of texts, he asked me to dinner. It was a line we both knew we shouldn't cross, but the temptation was too strong. That night, I found myself sitting across from him at a cozy restaurant, the dim lighting casting a soft glow over his face. We laughed, shared stories, and drank wine. By the end of the night, I could feel myself falling for him even though I knew it was dangerous. Our relationship escalated quickly after that. We started meeting outside the office regularly, sharing stolen moments, hidden glances, and passionate encounters that felt both thrilling and forbidden. He'd call me late at night just to hear my voice, and I found myself craving his attention, his touch, in a way that was almost addictive. But as the thrill of secrecy faded, reality started to creep in. One evening, he admitted he was risking everything for this. He had always been a respected professional, and here he was, putting his career on the line for a relationship that was complicated, to say the least. The look in his eyes was a mixture of fear and devotion, and it was then that I realized just how deeply he felt for me. He was willing to sacrifice his reputation, his career, all because he had fallen for me. Then, as if the universe had heard our silent fears, the calls started. Someone in the clinic had noticed the special attention he was giving me, and rumors were spreading. Dr. Stevens was under investigation, and he confessed to me in a panic. He was terrified, knowing he could lose everything. I wanted to comfort him, to tell him that things would be all right. But deep down, I knew this was my fault, too. We had both crossed a line, and now, the consequences were catching up with us. Eventually, the board called him in for a formal review. When he returned, the weight of his decision was written all over his face. His license was being suspended, and he'd been asked to resign. The man who had dedicated his life to helping others, who had poured his soul into his work, was now left with nothing. He looked at me with a mixture of love and regret, whispering, "You were worth it." And in that moment, I realized just how deeply he had cared. But as I watched him pack up his things, I couldn't shake the guilt that gnawed at my heart. This wasn't just his loss, it was ours. In the end, we both paid the price for our actions. Our story, once filled with passion and desire, became a painful lesson in the dangers of crossing forbidden boundaries. Dr. Stevens may have been willing to give up everything for me, but I was left wondering if the cost had been too high. Sometimes, love can be a destructive force, leaving behind nothing but the shattered pieces of what once was. This story is one that left scars on both of us. We followed our hearts and ignored the consequences until it was too late. Dr. Stevens taught me that sometimes, the heart's desires come at a price that neither love nor passion can cover. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more stories from Les Diary.